Hello, Bernie, and all the Institute 64ers. It was so lovely getting to meet you all last week, and just great to be in a room of such smart, successful people. I learned a lot, and I hope I was able to share some things that were just, it's necessarily giving you the answers, but actually creating even bigger questions to ask, because they're the uncomfortable ones, right? And that's leadership. So what I thought I'd do is just do a bit of a recap on some of the key points where I noticed a bit of a shift in the room, which meant A, hit a bit of a chord, B, made you think, oh, I might do that, or C, you need to really investigate that a little bit more. So here goes. The first one was all around the fact that your leadership team and then their teams below them are only ever going to rise as high as you do. So that's just not about your ability to build the company, but your leadership. So you're either the cap or the growth factor. And a lot of the things that I was covering here is really about what kind of leader that you want to be, and that's what's going to energize your teams as well. Now, we talked a lot about how procedures set you free. Procedures, most of you have got like a CFO, COO, CIO sort of background. So you get procedures. But the difference is it's behaviors, and this is what values were, that create the way that people will then decide to use the procedures and how they will use the procedures. And even better, how they will use those procedures and processes and really buy into the behaviors when no one is looking. Especially relevant for a lot of you who've got either people working at home or you've got multiple locations. You've got people just running off doing their own thing. So how can you bring that all back into a line? Values is the one thing that costs hardly anything, but it does require some consistency and a little bit of review of your values. We talked about that. Remember how I was saying around there was one company I was working with and they had open to change. So, and then I sort of said, well, how about we make that always adapting? So it's got A, more energy behind it, but B, rid of that word change. A lot of people do not like the word change, right? They resist it straight up. It's because I looked at I read 2,500 sets of values, vision, mission statements, and in all honesty, most of them were really vanilla. And you could have just changed the name of the company at the top and just swapped them all around. So what's going to make you really unique? That's going to attract great investors, great staff, and great clients. Then we asked the question, so obviously all of this work around values, does that all sit with you as a CEO? Well, you're ultimately responsible for it, but in terms of the enacting of that week in, week out, not just the quarterly meeting, but every week. So it becomes part of your weekly meetings, part of the language. Remember how I said, own it, do it, smash it? Smash it became part of the language. Now, every company has a different culture. I'm not saying you use mine. Please don't think that. It would be totally wrong in a lot of the organizations here. But each team can even create some words that suit what they do and what their charter is. That's the work that I absolutely love doing. So reach out. If you do not have a COO, remember I asked this question that you would rehire, and a lot of you squirmed in your chairs. That's a big one to really think about, because if you're struggling with your COO, I can absolutely guarantee you that the rest of the company is. Those, bidding on a question, ask the bigger question. Maybe that might be the question for you there. It's not the executive team and yourself who are going to grow the business. It's all the teams below you. So they have to be lined up. And it's not just about here's what the goal is. It's the how we're going to go about it, what we're going to do. That's where all the gold lies, in values. I also talked about when it comes to doing staff engagement surveys, this is about energizing your teams and your people. A lot of staff engagement surveys are winded, right? Come out about once a year. So they don't really give you a really fast enough barometer to start making some changes. So in my view, it's really easy. You can do them random. A lot of you got the company sizes. It just goes out randomly to different people every month. 2 questions. Still do your yearly one, don't get me wrong, but 2 questions. How much finger pointing, blame, excuses, negative vibe do you feel on most days in the organisation between 1 and 10? The flip side of that one is also the other question. How much fun, banter, lightness, ease of doing work do you find within the business on most days? Those 2, get that once a month, and you're going to start to see some things shifting and changing and where you might need to take some action. That you guys at the top, remember the photo that I showed of the Kelpies, and you're all like, oh, you lent into that. You get to really choose who's in your team. And then I showed you the other photo. Remember the little dash hounds, the little ones who are just ready to be offended and bite at someone? Nippy dopey Labradors who were just lovely and loyal, but they're slow as the little princesses. That's what your middle managers have to work with, and a lot of them. So the more that you can put in place the processes around the process and also the behaviors, i.e. the values, that's going to make it so much easier for all of your middle managers to be able to get, quite frankly, your KPIs as the CEO done, because all their KPIs reach up to yours. Remember, they grow your business, not you guys. You set the vision and the strategy, but they're the ones who actually do all the execution. The other one which I asked, and this is one where Simon sort of went, was when I asked the question, where are you meddling? That de-energizes your executive team like that. And it's often when we're under pressure or we're under stress that we tend to dip back into maybe what we know that we were really good at in our last role. So you might be dabbling with your COO or with the CFO, especially. You might start getting involved in marketing scripts for things you shouldn't be starting, but we do that. So just do yourself a little bit of a check and ask your EA or some trusted colleagues where you do that. Other one, just having a quick look at my list, was to really think about celebrating a lot. Remember, I talked about pattern disrupts. This is a part, I do a lot of neuroscience in a lot of the work that I do. People don't even know, but it's all about how the brain thinks and how to change that. So you literally get rid of one neural pathway and create another. That's what a pattern disrupt is. Remember, I had showed the different cups that I use in coffee. We do my Zoom coaching sessions. The cups had little different messages on them. Your quarterly meetings, your weekly meetings, every single mini celebration and celebrating mini milestones, not the milestone itself, but the behaviors that got you there. They're all pattern disrupts. They just shake people out of where they might be a bit stuck or spinning, lost in indecision, lost in direction, overwhelmed, exhausted, and it gets people back on track. Remember the ice phobos, have lots of ice phobos running around. I think that really starts to bring it all together. So it's a combination of what you can do to energize, but also be really focused and very clear, and that bit of personal awareness of everything else you're doing about where you might be personally and your executive team are de-energizing the teams below that do the actual execution. So I hope there's something in there that can help reinforce some of those, messages. Obviously, reach out at any time. Just reach out for a quick chat and go, oh, just thinking about this, or because quite often in this sort of session, this was more about raising the questions to be asked by yourself and also back with your executive teams, not necessarily the solutions. Although I've given you a lot of ideas, but often it's around what actually starts to just sit away at the back of your head. Happy to have a brainstorm around that anytime. And thank you so much and hope to see you again soon. Cheers.